There's no wonder why we turned out like we did. Remembering these bedtime stories. There's no wonder why I turned like this a kid. Remembering those bedtime tales. Oh, hi there. And welcome to tonight's episode of My Mum Said I Could Watch It. It's a weird one this time. The video cover you've just seen is, of course, Freaky Fairytales, because of the glow. Freaky Fairytales, which was the original filming title for the film we're about to discuss, Deadtime Stories, 1986. I would have been 10. I'm going to be kind and say I was 11. I doubt it. I was 10. Corner shop, rental. Knew it'd be horror. Hence the title of this show. Not much memory of it, but I'm going to get into that through this because this is a Mandela Effect episode, essentially. First off, because the title's different. It's actually called Deadtime Stories. What happened was it was originally filmed as Freaky Fairytales, changed for release to Deadtime Stories, and then changed back to Freaky Fairytales for the video release in the UK. No real understanding why, but it doesn't really ring when you consider that the opening song is remembering these bedtime stories, because bedtime as opposed to dead time kind of rings more than a Freaky Fairytales element. The song is immense. You can see it sort of intro sequence I remembered fairly vividly. Deadtime Stories there being behind me. There is a weird animation. There is a very Gilliam element to this film that I'm going to touch on in a sec. But in essence, it's one director, so it's not exactly a portmanteau. Creepshow-esque kind of knockoff, but rather than going for comic books, they've gone for fairy tales. Okay, so it's 3 reimagined fairy tales. One director throughout a lot. Even then, mixed bag within the genres. Opening song by Taj. Google it. Watch this intro sequence. It's one of those ones where you realise that this film had a massive budget, but they spent it in all the wrong places, which is great. The intricacy, what you're seeing behind you, because YouTube copyright thing, is a fairy tale book being read in immense detail. As one animated hand pulls it, and then another hand, probably a werewolf's hand, pulls that away. Then another hand, probably like a merman's hand, takes that away, and it just goes on. Each one having their own voice in the thing. You start with the classic drunk uncle babysitting brattish kid who's insistent that he gets told stories. Now, having recently come back from Star Wars celebrations, yes, I have mentioned it once or twice to a few of my friends all the time. Dealing with teenagers and nephews who I just need my lightsaber. I just need somebody. I'm not what happened to the Jedi kid from 15 years ago on the internet. Fuck off. Right? I can understand the guy's exasperation. He just wants to scratch himself and drink his brother's beer. That really is, the bar for, uncles of a certain persuasion. So we have the 3 stories. Now, the first one, I would say, is the strongest of them. It's not really, because it's not really based on a fairy tale itself. Not any one particular fairy tale. You have 2 evil witches who want to bring back the 3rd witch. They have a young man they've enslaved, and the crux of it is they need to sacrifice like a maiden who, through subterfuge, he is able to kill the witches and get the girl. It's a very basic story, but what they do to pepper it through the whole thing is they've gone for this weird mockney, alright, Baldrick, Gilliam-esque, alright love, go on, I'll just squeeze your bum, don't worry about the witches. There's even one slightly portrayed scene where he's found a nobleman. Nobleman thinks he's getting off with two gorgeous lovelies from a bevy of buxom beauties. And they're actually the witches. And then you just see one of them and the boob is just there. Oh, God. And hilarity ensues as they rip out his heart. It's also the one where you see when they reenact bring back the third witch. It's just one of those scenes where, much like when all the werewolf films came out, you just go, this isn't working, this isn't Hellraiser, where she reanimates herself from within and all the veins and stuff come in, but Hellraiser's been made and this ain't fucking Hellraiser. This is never going to look like Hellraiser. Don't do a Hellraiser. You really should have gone with the glowy, bad makeup, glowy bit. It's really admirable, but unfortunately, there is this film called Hellraiser. So that's the first film. Quite elaborate because it's original, and also brings back the uncle thing where he just throws in a twist at the end. The kid doesn't like the ending, so the uncle goes, oh, and then she came back to life and killed them both. And they die in a very childish sort of fashion, which is just emphasising the tone of it. By and large, it does try and stick to being a gothic horror. The film does go through tropes and has elements of tragedy, which brings us into the second film, which, again, has some great aspects to it. It's a play on Red Riding Hood, but the werewolf, what it is that he needs to take his antidepressants, or rather sedatives, and knock himself out. So the guy is actually the pained anti-hero in a way. You can see he doesn't want to kill anyone. He needs his fucking meds. Red Riding Hood, due to a confusion, ends up with his meds and he ends up with Grandma's. However, she's not at Grandma's house because this is padded with the most unsexy sex scenes I have seen. And, I've seen a lot of unsexy sex scenes. Someone asked me recently, what was the sexiest non-sexy scene you've ever seen? And I said, Christine on fire going at John Travolta. For those of you who need it clarified, yes, I do mean the car. So it opens with this protracted fantasy sequence where she's just basically rubbing her belly and is in her pants. Now, there's a level where that should be good. She's a very attractive woman. But this wah-wah pedal just throws it all off. It's not even comical. You just go... In fact, it's the same expression that she pulls when her boyfriend manages to get her into a fucking shed and just stares at her while blowing up the airbag that he's about to, take her virginity on. Meanwhile, all of it is just like, no. What is the moral here? Because surely the fairy tale should be, you should be careful with the meds, or should it be, don't go out with this guy who's 4 years older than you and doesn't even have, and has found some sort of bizarre fuck box that he's blowing up. Because, maybe that's what he wants to be doing. It might not be with you, milady. Throws in some good twists. The battles are good. The werewolf effect is well done. And there was an element at the end where I thought Grandmother was actually going to become a werewolf. Now, she does. Spoiler. This is 30-year-old films. You're not really worried about spoilers. But in my head, I thought that she became one of those massive prosthetic wolf creatures. Almost like pick Audrey 2 with a bonnet on it going, rah! 5.5 seconds of all the budget. But no, and then the music kicks in. We then finish with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, which is so scatological. Arguably, where all the money went. There's some fantastic jokes in it. The Three Bears are just basically the Fratellis. It's the Fratellis. They're the Fratellis, and they're escaping a lunatic asylum with some punk ska band playing stuff about being loony in the background. Very comic capers, Three Stooges, Fratellis. Goldilocks, however, has psychic powers, and that's not the best part. She basically has taken over their old house, not knowing it's theirs because it's dilapidated or whatever, and is just wooing guys to have sex with her, and as they're about to have sex with her, killing them. Sometimes with poison, sometimes by projecting a stake through their heart. All of this and then keeping the bodies in the house. So she has this massive frat house of like male corpses, as if they all hang out in some sort of like college fraternity. It's hilarious. It's psychotic and it's hilarious, and it looks so good. It looks so good. It really does hit the hysteria level of black comedy. There's a moment while she's watching it, and you know, it's throwing all the stuff, the meta elements of a TV there. Someone accuses her of psychic powers that no one believes on the TV. So she uses her psychic powers to make that man start smacking his head against the desk. The camera starts moving. Weather Girl's dress suddenly gets ripped off. I remember that slightly differently. Charlie Bond is banned from the comments. So the family finally meet her, and it is that Mickey and Maud, Baby Bear, who's just basically Zod. She tries to kill him because that's what she always does. So he goes, "Oh, what a woman!" and just takes her. And now that she's finally had sex, she goes, "Wow, this is actually all healthy and okay. But you know what? I really do enjoy killing people." And they go off on a spree. So you have a fairly decent gothic horror at the beginning, a very, very padded poor middle act, and you know, a very frantic finale, which I really want to stress, the film is at 82 minutes. So that's fair enough. I would actually say, as an adult, it's a reasonable midweek diversion. The final thing is the bookends itself, the story itself. The kid's just annoying as hell. You really are the uncle. I certainly am. When I'm watching this, there's a bit where he's going, "I just want to watch," right, and being forced to tell stories. There are some moments there, because one of the recurring things is he's coming up to tell the stories because the kid's constantly worried that there's a monster in his room. The moments when the kid is looking around the room, thinking there is a monster, are done with genuine suspense. There's a frog puppet that's like hanging from his bed, like drawer and stuff. This room is a work in progress. Shut up. That is ironically creepier and more suspense-filled and more maniacal than, spoiler alert, the monster that ends up turning up at the end. More budget was spent on this toy than there was on this that the guy doesn't spot. So yeah, it pretty much fulfilled the brief. Very mild in many ways. Certainly, as much as I say the unsexy sex scenes, there's not much gratuity. The violence, I would actually say, is relatively tame given the kind of story it is. You can see some of it behind me now. But ultimately, it's because it's very brief, it's very fast, it's very sort of, the effects are so sparse. They did make a wise move at making it 82 minutes. It's on Prime now. I would say that it is genuinely worth a midweek distraction. I will probably buy the Blu-ray, seeing if get a decent rate, 12 quid, and there's a lot of extras. And I got to admit, I am very intrigued in how this got made. So, if you do get a chance, check out Deadtime Stories. If you'd been thinking of Freaky Fairytales, which is probably where my mind came from, now you know it's actually called Deadtime Stories. And do look up Deadtime Stories by Taj, and just sing along for some crazy tunes. See you soon. Don't tell your mum I watched it.